It was both frightening and fascinating, a thing of raw beauty and rampaging fury. Tonight we look back at a brand new part of Maine history. NewsCenter reports the flood of '87. Good evening, I'm John Kerrigan for NewsCenter 2. The past week and a half have been among the most difficult times that I've seen in 15 years of news reporting here in the state of Maine. All of us here at NewsCenter have covered floods before, but this one was different. Bigger, faster, a flood that has cost Maine about $60 million in damages, and the figures are not all in yet. Tonight we're going to be a sort of video history book. We're going to take a look at this great flood through the eyes of NewsCenter reporters and photographers, and more importantly, through the eyes and the minds of the people who have lived through the flood. People who have lost a lot, but people who have shown a remarkable inner strength that has helped all of us make it through the flood of '87. The town of Milo in Piscataquis County is a classic example of this flood. Parts of Milo flood every spring, but not like this. The town was cut off from almost every place else, isolated by the flooded Sebec and Pleasant River. 3 bridges underwater, a number of houses flooded, power cut off for 2 days. When the waters receded, there was a mess. Roads washed out, houses and businesses awash in mud and debris. The flood of '87 will be remembered for its speed, its violence, its damage, and for all the cleanup work. Piscataquis County was hit especially hard by the flooding. P.A. Carr and photographer Paul Salisbury were in Piscataquis County on the first day of the flood. P.A., how have people there been coping with it all?
Well, Don, the people there are pushing on. They're sorting out, and they're making plans to rebuild. Repairing the damage caused by the flood of '87 will cost in the tens of millions of dollars in this county alone. And it all happened so quickly.
You can see how powerful it is.
Wednesday morning, April 1st, Dover Foxcroft.
About 5:30, I got a phone call from school telling me that there was no school today. So we came out back to check, and our building was up just to the bottom of it. So we went out and started removing things, and we tied it down so it wouldn't float away. It's come up to here since 5:30 this morning.
And it keeps coming.
It keeps coming. It's not slowing down at all.
Klassen's neighbor, Clint Foss, has a bigger problem.
The worst that we have seen was in 1968, and it wasn't anywhere near this bad.
By mid-morning, downtown Dover is crowded with awestruck spectators.
Something on that other boat.
Friends willing to help out. People here have seen floods before, but they realize this one is different. Historic Lowe's Bridge has weathered an estimated 150 years of floods. Shocked and saddened onlookers watch as Lowe's Bridge is washed away by the river it has for so long stood over. Midday, the water keeps rising, so does the fear in the crowd.
We talked to the Department of Transportation, and they figure the bridge will hold, but the sidewalks may give away.
The bridge in the center of town is closed. As emergency vehicles cross it, it shakes. Jim Robinson's mobile gas station shakes too, then succumbs.
Tank's gone? Yeah. One of them is. It keeps going. It's going to take that whole station there.
The tanks are gone. Gas tanks! I let them go. We lost one. Live power. That side got live wires, okay?
As the water gushes down the river, the people of Dover rush to help the flood's victims. Like many stores in the area, this hardware store is in serious trouble. Friends and strangers pitch in to save the inventory.
Any idea who owns this?
Late afternoon, Clint Foss has done what he can to save his riverfront house. Friends can't help here. Before dinner, the Fosses have to retreat and move to a motel. They watch the news and learn they're not alone. Just up the river in Guilford, flooding is causing substantial damage there too. The bridge in front of Guilford Industries is also closed. The factory is damaged. Hundreds are out of work. It is a nasty April Fool's joke, and many can't rest easy this night. Thursday morning, April 2nd. As the sun comes up and the water level goes down, this is the morning to face the damage.
No idea, because right now we have about 4 feet of water in the cellar. Therefore, we can't get down there to make any estimate, and actually that is where we should start and work up, say, through the house. The main floor of the house is covered with silt. There was probably 3 inches of water came in onto the floors, and the carpets are soaked and covered with silt, filled full. And, well, the situation on the outside is pretty rough.
Jim Robinson is also checking out his property, what is left of his mobile gas station.
I just don't know. You know, we get so much damage here and over everywhere. I just takes it out of you, that's all.
What do you do now?
Build it back. It's the only thing we can do. It's a great community, and the support's here and everything. And we'll just do whatever we have to build it back.
Disbelief at the former site of Lowe's Bridge. Destruction in Guilford.
Guilford is real hard hit, but we're staggering, but we're not out, and we will come back. The total damage in the town of Guilford, I would say, would be several $1 million.
Janice Grant and her daughter had to evacuate their River Road house Tuesday night. They are fearful of what they'll find when they return.
It's a mess. Total mess.
Do you have any insurance?
No.
So what are you going to do?
Start over. Just clean it out, fix it up again. We did most of the work ourselves. That was a mess when we bought the place. It's a mess again. So, we'll fix it.
The story is the same all over Guilford, homes and businesses. Much of the food at Gerald Gollett's IGA has to be thrown away.
You killed it. We've been through it quite a few times, but the water never reached this high. It never came to the store before. We'd watched it year after year across the road, and just had no idea it was going to be this bad.
You insured?
No. No, I was until last July, and it got to be too expensive. We dropped it. And it's a total loss. Whatever we've lost is lost.
Here, too, friends are helping out in the crisis.
This is where I shop. I'm from Guilford. This is where I shop. And they've got a real big mess, so they could use all the help. So I got up this morning and just came down and asked if I could do anything, and they put me right to work.
But it's going to take a lot of work to get the oil off the buildings. The oil comes from Guilford Industries and other businesses in the area. Gas tanks and furnaces ruptured, sending the oil floating on the river. By the end of the week, Piscataquis County staggers back to its feet. No one hurt, no one missing. Not too many people with flood insurance or any idea how to pay for the much-needed repairs. As the new week begins, there is some sign of help. Tuesday, April 7th, Governor John McKernan visits Dover.
It would be within a week that the first checks would begin to come in. But again, that is going to be a logistical problem as much as anything, and that is that once the offices are set up by the Federal Emergency Management Agency on Monday, then it will be the process of having people come in and demonstrate their damages, at which point we would then receive the paperwork, and hopefully within a couple of days after that, the check would go out to those people. So we're really talking.
Clint and Dorothy Foss are there.
At this point, we just, you know, we have heat and we have hot water and we're back home.
Oh, well, that's good.
That's
Glad
good.
to hear that.
That's where we belong.
That's right.
5 days.
After 5 days is right. But,
The governor continues his tour of the destruction. The Fosses head home to continue cleaning up.
We will be back with a further look at the flood of '87.
If your car has been lost or damaged by the flood, and you're a statistic standing in the long line at the insurance company without transportation, or if you're looking for safe, basic, reliable transportation, come to McKenzie Motors, because we now offer no money down and 90 days until your first payment. It's that simple. Everybody needs a Yugo sometime. This may be yours.
At Shop and Save, you'll find lower prices all the time.
At Shop and Save, when we trim our famous quality choice meats to a maximum of 1/8 inch exterior fat, we trim your calories, your fat intake, and more importantly, your grocery bill. 1/8 inch thin trim. Just one more way Shop and Save trims your grocery bill.
Wool, a natural fiber whose rich, warm texture and plush softness is harvested. And beyond the bright yellow awnings of the Eastland Woolen Mills outlet, you'll discover gorgeous plaids, herringbones, wool, and wool blends from $5 a yard, coats starting at $49, blankets from $8, tablecloths and place settings, all at wholesale prices. Eastland Woolen Mills, Maine people producing quality products for the world on Route 1A in East Holden or Route 7 in Corinna.
R.H. Foster Incorporated is the one industrial lubricants distributor in the state of Maine that's proud to show you its references. We provide major industry throughout Maine with machine oils, cutting oils, hydraulic fluids, gear lubes, synthetic lubes, antifreeze, and motor oils. In addition to these high-quality products from Mobil, our professional approach to customers includes engineering services. If we can't save you money, we don't deserve your business. Why not let our company serve yours? You'll be comfortable with us.
In the flood of 1987, Kennebec County suffered more damage than any other part of the state of Maine. Russ Van Arsdale joins us now with the story of the flooding in the Waterville-Winslow area.
Don, the damage was very extensive in that part of central Maine, primarily because a number of businesses are located right along the riverbanks in those areas. The town manager in Winslow told me a couple of days ago damage in his community alone could top $11 million.
The night of April 1st in central Maine was unlike anything people here had ever seen before. Water was everywhere, it seemed, and it had come up so quickly. The water rose 1.5 feet per hour, some people estimated. They had seen the Kennebec and Sebasticook rivers swell in the springtime almost every year, but they'd never seen anything like this.
Palm Center to Waterville 66. Boy, they had a crew down there within 20 minutes in the area of the service station. They can't locate that. Could you give me any better location?
The crisis pushed emergency response crews and their communications and rescue equipment to the limit. Police and firefighters worked with little or no rest, in some cases picking people out of buildings where they'd become trapped. NewsCenter's Bill Green talked with 2 employees of the Kennebec Sanitary Treatment District who had become stranded.
It is kind of an interesting thing to be sitting in a building as the water comes up around you. What were your thoughts?
Well, we were just trying to protect the equipment that we had there and shut off, as one floor would flood, we'd shut off all the equipment on that level and try and protect what we had.
Yeah. And you, what, kept going up as the water kept going up, huh?
Well, yes, we had to keep going higher. The problem was there when we lost the bank down behind the place. It washed it out, and the river started coming in real bad then.
Oh. Did you feel you were in terrific danger, or?
No, not really. It was nice that people had noticed that we were there, and we, on auxiliary power, our phones don't work, so we didn't know everyone was trying to call us and warn us.
The power of the rushing water could hardly have been imagined by most people in Waterville, in Winslow, and in Fairfield. Especially hard hit was the Fairfield Mobile Home Park, better known to some as Cottle's Park. Only a few people here had flood insurance, the very expensive coverage all the flood prevention experts and emergency workers kept saying people who live on floodplains should have, just in case. After the flood, there was no way residents could stay in this park. Even the better-built, late-model manufactured homes had no chance against the force of the water thrown at them. As they plowed away the mud and silt and helped clean up the homes of people who had to leave in a hurry, they talked about starting to wipe away the memory of the worst flood in 50 years.
I just hope you don't have any more heavy rain. I think it just takes time and patience, and just stick at it, and it'll get done one thing at a time, and bit by bit she'll get in shape again. It's going to take a while. I hope the people, some of them are discouraged naturally.
So a lot of lost a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, well, I was in a 38 hurricane, 54 hurricane, 58 hurricane.
Everywhere, the story was the same. For every inch the water level rose, the damage and destruction rose twice as fast, or so it must have seemed to people who could only watch as their property was being swept away. In Winslow, 7 homes were carried downriver. By some miracle, no one was seriously hurt. The Winslow Library was hard hit. 25,000 books lost, damage approximately $500,000. News watcher Kimford Wakefield got one of the last shots of the Fort Halifax blockhouse. After withstanding every storm since 1754, it was swept away sometime during the night of April 1st. The following morning, the owners of several businesses near the junction of the Augusta and China roads could only watch and wait for the water to go down. The river had risen so fast, merchants could do little to protect their stock. Bill Plow owns the IGA food liner here. He remembers shoppers in his store didn't want to leave when word first came that the river was going over its banks.
We took out the 2 bottom shelves and all the equipment we had, like the cash registers and the MSI machine, and as much as we could. And then we had to close out. The water was coming up so high that I had to stop them from taking the groceries out because I was afraid somebody would get hurt.
What are you going to have to do now, Bill, to get back in business?
I'm going to have to get a federal loan to get back in business. It's already being worked on right now. I'm going to reopen back with new equipment, new everything. Start from scratch.
That'll be a big job.
Sure is, but we'll do it.
The supermarket needs new shelves and cases. It will be about a month before it's open again. Better than ever, the sign out front promises. Next door at Laverdier's drugstore, the damage was at least as great, into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, according to corporate president Steve Laverdier. With lots of hard work by employees, the store was cleaned out and open again for business on Wednesday of this week. Soon after the flood, there was a feeling of awe, a stunned realization of what had happened, that this was the worst flood since 1936 in central Maine. Those who remember that one said this could be the worst ever.
I used to land on the roof where I used to live with a rowboat in 36. And this is a lot worse. I think it's about probably around 10 feet higher than what it was in 36. Wow. Yeah. All the houses right now, they're all gone.
you know, there's a lot of serious damage to those businesses, and we really hope that they don't get too discouraged. This doesn't happen too often, and hopefully they can rebuild and pick themselves up and be stronger than ever.
If you had said the word spirit in these communities a month ago, it could have conjured up 1,000 images. Now, a real community spirit is evident everywhere, and it's making the people who share that spirit feel very proud. The work in some cases is just beginning in central Maine. The cleanup continues at Scott's paper mill in Winslow, where the rushing water has shut down the paper machines for an indefinite period. At the C.F. Hathaway manufacturing plant, the basement was filled with water, but some employees worked all weekend, and Monday morning it was back in operation. Structural damage said to be minimal. Everywhere the work is continuing. People no longer stand and stare at what they thought couldn't be happening to them. Instead, they're picking up and putting back, and getting back, as nearly as possible, to normal.
It was that sense of spirit, community spirit was what many people called it, in remarking on how people responded to this emergency dawn, a spirit that people simply would not be dominated by all the adversity that Mother Nature had thrown at them.
And they've got a lot of work left to do. They'll need every bit of that spirit.
A great deal of work left ahead, Don.
Okay. Thanks very much, Russ. How did this flood happen, surprising so many people so quickly? We'll take a look at that and at the Penobscot River running wild in the flood of '87.
Wool, a natural fiber whose rich, warm texture and plush softness is harvested, and at Eastland Woolen Mills, carded, spun, and woven into an array of beautiful fabrics. We're Maine people producing quality products for the world. Visit our factory outlet with its bright plaids, nubby or smooth woolen fabrics by the yard at wholesale prices. Blankets, tablecloths, and place settings. Coats from $49 and handmade items. Look for the bright yellow awnings on Route 1A in East Holden or Route 7 in Corinna.
Moving, trying to decide on a mover, they all seem the same. Call the others, then call the #1 mover who makes the difference, Fox & Ginn, your Allied Van Lines agent. Committed to serving its customers by guaranteeing pickup and delivery, also guaranteeing price. Allied Van Lines offers extra care protection, which is full replacement cost coverage. A professional from the staff at Allied Van Lines will visit you after your move is completed to guarantee your satisfaction. With Allied, there is a difference. At Fox & Ginn, we deliver difference.
Here comes Conroy from Glastron, America's affordable boat. Now at Darling's Recreational Division Brewer. Darling's has available a fleet of affordable Glastron Conroy boats, from the 16-foot outboard to the big, roomy 19-footer with cabin. Now everybody in Maine can afford boating. Not just for the beauty, power, and performance Glastron packed into Conroy, but for what they took out, high prices. See the Glastron Conroy fleet and Mercury Motors at Darling's and Brewer.
This is a size 6 body, and this is not. But that doesn't mean I can't look terrific.
Apropos has moved to a new location, 91 Main Street across from Freeze's in historic downtown Bangor, with a new staff of fashion consultants in the store at all times to help you plan your new spring wardrobe. We carry sizes 14 and up and are open from 9:30 to 5, Monday through Saturday. Our new location offers more parking, easier access, and an entire new look. Stop in and visit us at 91 Main Street in Bangor.
The flood, as we have already said, moved so quickly, and it surprised a lot of us because in Bangor and in many other places that were flooded, it didn't seem like it really rained all that much. How did this big flood happen? Meteorologist Mike Bono joins us now with the story behind the flood.
Don, to trace the real causes of the flood of '87, you have to go back to the beginning of a winter that was the snowiest in almost 20 years in some parts of the state. It started in November when wet snows of 2 to 3 feet stranded hunters in the Allagash. It peaked in January, just shy of the snowiest January on record in Bangor. Without a thaw, snowpacks reached 4 feet or more in the mountains during March. Then suddenly the weather took a turn. Not 2 days after spring began, warm weather invaded the state. Snow began to melt, the ground softened, and water started to soak in. The flood potential in Maine was high. The ground was so wet it couldn't absorb any more water. Plus, the water content of the snow was very high. Measurements showed that the snow in the Penobscot Valley contained between 4 and 6 inches of water, and in the northern and western parts of the state, 6 to 8 inches of water content in the snowpack. In fact, up to 10 inches of water was contained in the western mountains of the state. It was a disaster waiting to happen. All that was needed was a heavy rain. And that's exactly what we got between March 30th and April 1st. It was just about as heavy a rain as you would ever expect in Maine, and it came at the worst possible time. A low-pressure system came up the Atlantic seaboard from the Appalachians and slowed down as it approached Maine, dumping torrential rains from the Appalachians right through Maine. And some of the heavier amounts in the state were over 7 inches in Blanchard and the Piscataquis River Valley, 6.23 at Wyman Dam and the Kennebec, 5.51 at Rumford, and 6.94 at Bethel on the Androscoggin. When you add most of the melted snow to the rainfall, you come up with between 10 inches and 15 inches of water all together, more than twice as much as the actual rainfall from the storm. It's no wonder that this turned out to be one of the worst floods of the century and, in some areas, the worst in anyone's memory. Back to you, Don.
After Guilford and Milo and the Waterville area got hit, it was time for the Penobscot River to go to work. Tom Halleck joins us now with the story of the flooding Penobscot that damaged lots of area towns.
It sure did, Don. For people who live along the Penobscot, they're used to flooding. It's sort of a ritual, a springtime ritual here in this part of Maine. But this year, the Penobscot rose quicker and higher than most people ever remember. And this year, the ritual known as spring flooding instead is being known as the Great Flood of '87, the year the Penobscot ran out of control and nearly wiped out towns along its banks. This is not the Penobscot River. Believe it or not, it's Route 2 last Thursday. The Penobscot ran wild, flooding out houses and washing out roads. The problems for people who live along this river actually started a week ago, Tuesday night, as March roared out like a lion. Several roads washed out. But still, no one had any idea the nightmare was just beginning.
Vanguard 3527. How much water is across 143 in Etna?
Oh, there's one spot there, a foot, a little better.
By Wednesday, heavy rains continued, and the river continued to rise, flooding out towns like Costigan, Milford, and Howland. The water wreaked havoc here at the new power plant in Enfield, where the work site is 80 feet below the level of the river. By that night, Penobscot County Sheriff's deputies started evacuating people from the Costigan and Milford areas. As the river surged over its banks earlier in the night, Route 2 was shut down. Upland in Howland, the water was nearing the Howland Bridge, and residents had a hard time getting to their homes.
Well, it's unreal. Really.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
Never seen anything like it in my life.
By the next morning, here's what Howland looked like. Much of the town buried underwater. The same shocking scene in Enfield and Passadumkeag. Roads washed out, bridges cut up. In the Orono Old Town and Costigan areas, the river was rising several feet each hour. Volunteers and firefighters swarmed with sandbags, trying to slow the flow of the water. More people had to be evacuated.
She's up at least 6 inches in less than an hour.
The river hadn't even crested yet when townspeople found out the worst was not over. The river had backed up behind the Indian Island Bridge. A huge ice jam was holding back millions of gallons of surging water. Upriver, sheriff's deputies and National Guardsmen evacuated even more people.
Bad, boy. I'll tell you.
Is this the worst you've ever seen it?
The worst I've seen it, yeah. And I've lived here all my life. All my life.
By daylight Friday, the flooding upriver was at least under control. But in towns like Bradley, that was no consolation. The town and many people's homes were flooded. The water levels remained high through Friday night, up to the windows of some homes. But finally, by Saturday, the river had lost its roar and started to recede, and townspeople started to return home.
So you no idea what the damage or anything is yet?
Well, he's checking right now. But we had everything downstairs, colored TV, furniture, washer and dryer, and everything.
throughout the weekend, people started to clean up. By Monday, the water was gone. Homeowners like Rod Mitchell started cleaning out their homes that 3 days earlier were knee-deep full of water. By Monday, Mitchell had his furniture out on the lawn and was already planning to repair the damage. In Howland, where they lost all their water, canned water from Anheuser-Busch and its plant in upstate New York arrived, and Penobscot Valley High School students help unload thousands of cases. At Burr's General Store here in Costigan, thousands of dollars worth of damage. Store clerk Jerry Dimon summed up for many the story they'll remember most of the great flood of '87, how people came together, helped each other survive, and then recover.
There's a lot of human spirit here. There's a lot of good people here. There's, you know, because I don't know and I'm not familiar with all of them, you know. But it just seems like they're all right here. They're very well supportive. And that gives them very much incentive to go on. It really does. It's good to have people like that.
Tonight, some people still have water in their basement. They still have some damage that needs to be fixed. But for the most part tonight, Don, people's lives in these towns are starting to return to normal.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. When we come back, we'll see what happened in the city of Skowhegan, and we'll see how a whole bunch of young people protected Pittsfield. Stay with us.
If your car has been lost or damaged by the flood, and you're a statistic standing in the long line at the insurance company without transportation, or if you're looking for safe, basic, reliable transportation, come to McKenzie Motors, because we now offer no money down and 90 days until your first payment. It's that simple. Everybody needs a Yugo sometime. This may be yours.
Get creative with help from Bev and Jean at B&J Ceramics. B&J is a wholesale retail distributor for Gare and Doc Holiday supplies, among other lines. It is also a member of the Ceramic Guild. They have all the supplies you'll need with over 3,000 molds to choose from. Ready-to-paint bisque and made-to-order items are available. B&J offers classes for the novice to the expert. Jean is nationally certified with years of training and experience. She attends seminars regularly to learn the latest techniques in the market. B&J Ceramics, the professional place to be creative.
Wool, a natural fiber whose rich, warm texture and plush softness is harvested. And at Eastland Woolen Mills, carded, spun, and woven into an array of beautiful fabrics. We're Maine people producing quality products for the world. Visit our factory outlet with its bright plaids, nubby or smooth woolen fabrics by the yard at wholesale prices. Blankets, tablecloths, and place settings. Coats from $49 and handmade items. Look for the bright yellow awnings on Route 1A in East Holden or Route 7 in Corinna.
At Riggs Rugs in Ellsworth, we'll roll out the red carpet when you visit us. Our spring sale is on through April. Famous brand carpets, plush and thick under your feet. Everything in the store 10 to 50% off. Save on Pineland, Sanford, and Downs carpet in a rainbow of colors. Choose beautiful linoleum for your kitchen. In our warehouse, save 50% on select no-wax vinyl. Professional installation always available. Riggs Rugs in Ellsworth for the red carpet treatment.
Some of the most dramatic and memorable scenes of this year's flood are those from Skowhegan and Pittsfield. Pittsfield, where a huge volunteer effort paid off, and Skowhegan, where the flood did amazing damage. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, we don't need to say much more. This is Skowhegan, the day after. The flood of '87 left deep wounds and a divided town. You now have to travel about 30 miles to get from one side of Skowhegan to the other. Skowhegan was one of the first places to feel the power of the Kennebec River. By 8:30 in the morning of Wednesday, the bridges in town were closed. The river was pounding through the middle of Skowhegan. The section of Route 2 called the Eddy flooded over. The road washed out. The old railroad bridge shuddered under the pressure of the flood, then surrendered. The Margaret Chase Smith Bridge held, but the road to it did not. Power, phone, and sewer lines were ripped out. Businesses on the river watched the water do its work. Homeowners fought as best they could. Wednesday night, the water dropped. Thursday morning, the pictures told the story.
We're just fortunate that the two bridges are still here. If I was a betting person, I would have bet they would have been gone, but due to the ice factor wasn't here in the river, I think that's what probably saved the bridges.
But pictures alone cannot tell the story of the courage and resilience of the people in Skowhegan. That story was in Charles and Dorothy Cleaver's house, a house that was taken over by the river, then taken over by a horde of friends and family members, cleaning up, helping the Cleavers to recover.
There was 3.5 feet of water in the whole house, and we lost most of our furniture and a lot of family pictures and things like that, but no one was hurt, and that's all we care about. We love the river, and we knew when we moved here that this might happen. We didn't think it would be this bad, but we love to fish in the river, and we sail in the river and swim in the river, and so we owe it one.
A week and a half after the flood, Skowhegan is still repairing roads and bridges, still wondering about repairing its sewer plant. Damage here over $8 million, and that does not include homes and businesses. In Pittsfield, the loss was much smaller, but there's a lot more to it than that. For almost 3 days, Pittsfield was a town underwater. One of its principal businesses was saved by the heroic work of a whole lot of people. The Sebasticook River flooded quickly, putting houses and roads underwater. And a small army of MCI students and other townspeople answered the call at the Edwards Corporation. Edwards makes firefighting equipment, and the Sebasticook threatened to engulf the factory building. But the river didn't reckon with the people power of Pittsfield.
Well, yeah, I didn't think this much work could be done, but apparently everybody helping it did a lot.
It was really surprising last night. We had, so many people you wouldn't expect to come down, and they all came down and helped out. It was really good.
The sandbaggers worked through the night and the next day, putting up a barrier against the river. It worked. The Sebasticook was held at bay. The Edwards Corporation was saved. Pittsfield did not escape damage. 150 homes and 9 businesses were damaged by the flood. A number of roads were also affected. But Pittsfield got something out of this too, a real sense of saving the town and of people together against the flood. When we come back, we'll look at Bangor and the flood many people thought would never happen again.
Wool, a natural fiber whose rich, warm texture and plush softness is harvested. And beyond the bright yellow awnings of the Eastland Woolen Mills outlet, you'll discover gorgeous plaids, herringbones, wool, and wool blends from $5 a yard, coats starting at $49, blankets from $8, tablecloths and place settings, all at wholesale prices. Eastland Woolen Mills, Maine people producing quality products for the world on Route 1A in East Holden or Route 7 in Corinna.
Darling's Nissan makes you feel like driving. First, Darling's tremendous selection. Choose from over 100 new Nissan cars and trucks. Second, helpful, friendly salespeople to assist you. Third, Darling's easy on-the-spot bank financing with low rates. Fourth, big savings. Right now, buy an 87 Nissan standard bed pickup for only $65.99 after factory rebate. Big selection, easy financing, makes you feel like driving at Darling's Nissan.
As a pharmacist, I depend on a lot of tools of the trade. But as a WLB pharmacist, I depend on one tool that no other drugstore has, CHIP, WLB's computerized health information program. CHIP puts everything I need to know about my customers right at my fingertips. And CHIP even reminds me whenever a prescription has a generic alternative. That can save my customers up to 60%. CHIP's a tool of the trade I wouldn't trade for anything. Neither should you.
The new Caterpillar backhoe loader uses the same hydraulics found on Cat excavators, which makes it hard to beat at loading and digging. And its simple controls with on-the-go shifting mean you won't find a machine that's easier to operate.
But the way it moves from job to job really shows why the cat backhoe loader is such a hard machine to beat. It's because it's so hard to catch. Call us today before they all get away. We're Jordan Milton, your Caterpillar dealer.
I never thought I'd see a downtown Bangor flood again, but it happened. Jill McDonald joins us with the story of Bangor's flooding.
Don, Bangor's flood scare came later in the week than much of the other flooding did. But once it began to develop, flood worries kept public safety officials on the move for 2 days and had business owners along the Kenduskeag Stream eyeing the water line. City officials feared a repeat of the flooding back in 1976 when freak weather conditions caused the Kenduskeag Stream to overflow its retaining walls. People in the downtown area had very little notice. There was heavy damage to businesses, and one woman narrowly escaped drowning when she became trapped in her flooded car. This time we had more warning. The vigil began on Thursday. Fire Chief Robert Burke wasn't taking any chances.
Okay, we've evacuated all the lower levels of the banks, notified everybody to get their vehicles out of here. I have an engine on standby. I have 2 boats. The police are going around evacuating what they can. So we've got it. The hydro's been notified to shut the power off in case it does go over.
The water rose quickly, about 2.5 inches every 5 minutes, but stopped about 6 inches short of the top of the wall in Kenduskeag Plaza. The other side of State Street was another story. Here, the stream did top the wall, and some businesses in the Stetson block had flooded basements.
How much damage? Oh, none so far.
So everything's okay in there?
So far, yes. Hopefully it'll stay that way.
About 13 hours later, other businesses further downstream would share the misfortune. Shortly after 1 a.m. on Friday, the stream spilled over its walls and into the surrounding parking area. Water filled the first levels of nearby bank buildings, and power was cut off, forcing some places to close for the day. By daybreak, firefighters were pumping water from the flooded parking area back into the stream, trying to make room for what they thought would be a worse flood on the next high tide.
The rate of rise is about 2 inches every 5 minutes, which is what it has been the last 2 high tides. The one thing that does appear to be different than last night when it overtopped the walls is that the elevation of the water at this point in time is comparatively higher than it was then.
Friday afternoon, the plaza area took on an almost carnival air as spectators gathered to watch the rare sight. Flood conditions on the Penobscot combined with high tide and an additional surge of water from an ice jam break upriver had officials convinced that the stream would go over again. Can you tell us what we might see within the next hour?
Well, it's hard to tell right now. As you said, we have a 2 to 4 foot tidal surge, as it were, coming that'll meet exactly at high tide. The accumulation of the two, it's hard to tell exactly how much water we're going to get, but according to Jim Ring, it's possible we may see anywhere from 3 to 5 feet, and it should be fairly rapid.
Then, shortly before 2:30, the stream suddenly stopped rising, just 2 inches from the top of the wall.
Well, we just took another measurement, and we're at about 2 inches from the top of the lip here of the concrete, and that's remained steady now for 2 measurements. So that's good news, and of course, high tide has peaked off, and we're on the downside of that. The one concern we have is a fairly substantial piece of ice, a large chunk that's come over the VZ Dam, and it's almost at the headwater here. So if that hits at an inappropriate time and it hasn't broken up, you will get what is called a backlash, and that could cause the water to rise, and that's what they're watching now.
Businesses on the plaza were impressed with the organization of public safety officials. Fire inspectors made the rounds, warning people of flood danger and the possibility of electricity cutoff.
We've been very pleased with the cooperation from the Bangor Fire Department, the Police Department, the Bangor Hydro has done an outstanding job, and I think just the general organization and orderly manner in which people have handled themselves is very complimentary to the city.
But all the warning in the world couldn't stop the water and the damage it left in its wake.
And it's hard to say exactly how long it would take to redo it. The floors are shot. The walls may be, beyond repair. Just still waiting to find out how bad it is.
Our lounge area, we just done some renovations down there, and that's pretty much all taken out the counters and everything. But hopefully we'll be able to salvage good portion of it.
City officials were able to clear parking areas of all but one car, and most businesses had enough warning to move valuables to higher ground. And as we emphasize over and over, Don, no one was hurt in this. It certainly could have been much worse.
Yep, forewarned is forearmed, as they say.
That's right, and it's much better this time than last.
I should say. Thank you very much, Jill. When we come back, we'll take a look at flooding in some other places and at the remarkable repair, cleanup, and assistance efforts for the flood of '87.
Boxing can sometimes be painful in more ways than one. When back muscular problems forced me to stop boxing, I went to Gerald Sears' chiropractic office. Within 3 months, he had me back in the ring, feeling better than ever.
You don't have to box to experience problems that cause pain and stiffness in your neck, arms, legs, and back. And when you do, chiropractic can help. Chiropractic is a drug-free healthcare alternative. Call Sears Chiropractic Center today at these locations.
For over 30 years, Maine people have been buying their homes from Sargent's Mobile Homes. Why? Because Sargent's prices are lower. No one sells homes for less than Sargent's Homes, such as the Maine-made Oxford, Burlington, and the Liberty in sizes and floor plans to suit your individual taste. If the cost of conventional housing is getting you down, choose a home within your budget with modern furnishings and accessories. Compare Sargent's Mobile Homes with other dealers. We sell the best for less. Before you decide, check out our homes at Sargent's Mobile Homes, Route 1, East Ellsworth.
Wool, a natural fiber whose rich, warm texture and plush softness is harvested. And beyond the bright yellow awnings of the Eastland Woolen Mills outlet, you'll discover gorgeous plaids, herringbones, wool, and wool blends from $5 a yard, coats starting at $49, blankets from $8, tablecloths and place settings, all at wholesale prices. Eastland Woolen Mills, Maine people producing quality products for the world on Route 1A in East Holden or Route 7 in Corinna.
Darling's Recreational Division Brewer is jammed with spring specials and spectacular savings. Right in the spring and save big on an 85 V30 Honda Magna, reduced to $26.98, only $94.95 monthly. Payment includes the Pro Pack extended service contract. Check out the hottest bike of the season, the all-new Honda Hurricane 600, yours for just $38.98 on the low $135.22 a month. Pro Pack extended service contract included. Hot deals on hot wheels at Darling's and Brewer.
The flooding hit half the counties in Maine, including the state capital. State government responded quickly, not only in Augusta, but everywhere, cleaning up and providing support. Janet Smith joins us now with the story of the flooding in the Augusta area.
That's right, Don. As you know, the Augusta-Hollowell area is also one of those areas that experiences springtime flooding every year. But when the flood of 1987 hit, it hit harder than ever. Augusta sits right on the edge of the Kennebec River. People in that city are used to spring flooding, so each year they brace themselves. But with each passing hour on Wednesday, April 1st, the Kennebec River kept rising. Floodwaters raced through streets, crashed against stores, and surrounded homes. Whatever stood in the path of the raging Kennebec was quickly swept away. Oil tanks, logs, whole trees, and dumpsters. People in Augusta may be used to the spring flooding, but they say they've never seen anything like this.
We had a house come by here a little while ago, and hit an impact on the bridge there. It shattered right up into small little pieces and just floated on down.
All along Water Street, merchants worked frantically to salvage merchandise from their stores. A few miles downstream is the town of Hollowell. Hollowell considers itself one of the antique capitals of the state. The town spent thousands of dollars sprucing up the place to attract business. Much of that hard work was destroyed when the flood hit. Waters rose to the top of the old-fashioned streetlights, and the only way to get through town was by boat. Hollowell storekeepers tried to save what they could, but floodwaters rose so fast it was nearly impossible to get to any stores, let alone salvage anything. Don Trask had to get to his laundromat by canoe.
What's running through your mind now when you look over at your business?
Tough. Well, that's what you do. It gets so bad, you got to laugh. If you don't laugh, you're going to cry.
By Wednesday night, the Kennebec had reached 34 feet, 21 feet above flood level. By Thursday, the flood was over, but the waters remained high. It was now time for the cleanup. This was the day when some flood victims were able to return to their homes and see just what Mother Nature had done.
It came up so fast we couldn't take nothing out. The water was coming fast. We was trying to take some stuff, but we couldn't. The water was coming up too fast.
So you lost everything?
Everything. Upstairs, though. We got out there. It did go way upstairs.
It's an act of God. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, we were just hoping that it wouldn't come up into the restaurant and everything, but if it does, well, we'll just go back in and clean it back out again. It's, you know, there's nothing else you can do. You just have to kind of ride with the tide, so to speak.
Everyone in this area agreed it was the worst flooding they had ever seen. The flood was history, but the devastation remained. People in the flooded areas were exhausted, and some didn't know where to turn. That's when Maine Army National Guardsmen, Salvation Army workers, and the Red Cross volunteers came out in full force to help the flood victims in the Augusta-Hollowell area.
Operating feeding station. A lot of these people haven't even had a hot meal for days. And we also have a crew that here that is helping them move this stuff out of the house.
It must give you a good feeling to be able to help these folks.
Well, it does, but I'd a whole lot rather it didn't happen.
We have so much to be thankful for. Red Cross has been here, and the Salvation Army. It's been a grateful help. Everybody's given us a helping hand.
The flood damage was statewide, and the cry for help came from thousands and thousands of flood victims. Maine National Guardsmen, Red Cross volunteers, and law enforcement personnel came to the rescue in all the affected areas. Maine Army National Guardsmen and Army active duty soldiers were also there when people in Costigan had to be evacuated from their homes when the Penobscot River began rising.
She's up at least 6 inches in less than an hour. And the currents increased too.
Army Guardsmen were also standing by when the North Street Dam in Newport looked like it was going to break. While military personnel were rescuing stranded flood victims and getting them to higher ground, Red Cross volunteers were setting up emergency shelters and service centers all over the state where those affected people could go and get a hot cup of coffee or a warm, dry place to sleep. Even out-of-state Red Cross volunteers came to Maine to lend a hand.
A large setup like this, you've got people here in Maine from New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania and Ohio and Florida and North Carolina and South Carolina, just almost the whole eastern third of the country. There's great satisfaction in being able to help right now because you've prepared yourself, you've taken the training. But we could not do that if we didn't have the support through the donations that people have made over the years to the American Red Cross for this very kind of thing.
So, Don, there are so many people out there who have lent a hand, and I'm sure there are going to be many more that will.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jenna. When we come back, we'll have some final thoughts on the flooding and some pictures you've been waiting to see.
Wool, a natural fiber whose rich, warm texture and plush softness is harvested, and at Eastland Woolen Mills, carded, spun, and woven into an array of beautiful fabrics. We're Maine people producing quality products for the world. Visit our factory outlet with its bright plaids, nubby, or smooth woolen fabrics by the yard at wholesale prices. Blankets, tablecloths, and place settings. Coats from $49 and handmade items. Look for the bright yellow awnings on Route 1A in East Holden or Route 7 in Corinna.
Moving, trying to decide on a mover, they all seem the same. Call the others, then call the #1 mover who makes the difference, Fox & Ginn, your Allied Van Lines agent. Committed to serving its customers by guaranteeing pickup and delivery, also guaranteeing price. Allied Van Lines offers extra care protection, which is full replacement cost coverage. A professional from the staff at Allied Van Lines will visit you after your move is completed to guarantee your satisfaction. With Allied, there is a difference. At Fox & Ginn, we deliver difference. Every man's home is his castle. Hi, Hallett's Handyman here. Does the front door to your castle look less than regal? We'll make that important first impression a good one with one of these fine doors. An exterior door brings a striking improvement in the appearance of the home. Decorative expression is best shown in louver doors that enhance any room. Take it from Fred Hallett's Handyman. For great buys on doors and windows, come to Fred Hallett's in Howland. Let us open your castle with pride. Big Paul of Paul's Restaurant in Bangor and Admiral Bob of Jordan's Restaurant in Searsport are squaring off to make the catch of the day. The crowd waits in anticipation. Will it be the scallop or gratin, the seafood platter, the rancher's rib steak, or the sautéed lobster?
How's about filet of sole?
Oh, no. For the catch of your choice, come to Paul's Restaurant in Bangor or Jordan's in Searsport.
One of the real tragedies of this flood for a lot of people was the loss of Lowe's Bridge between Guilford and Sangerville, a historic covered bridge that had stood there for over 130 years. That bridge was washed away in the flood. Joining me is Dwinell Hall of Guilford, Sangerville area of Guilford, who was there and was one of the very few people to get good pictures of that bridge when it actually was washed away by the flood. Mr. Hall, why were you there?
I was trapped in. I couldn't get out either way, so I had nothing else to do, but so I watched the bridge.
Did you think it would go?
For about an hour. We kind of thought it really would, yeah.
Even though we'd seen floods there before, bad ones?
Yes, but the water was so much higher this time and pushing on the bridge, we just kind of figured it would go.
Now, we've got a couple of your pictures that we want to show the audience and take a look at of the Lowe's covered bridge in Guilford. It goes, here's this picture. This looks like it's just after the bridge is washed away.
Yes, that's just a few seconds. Probably about the fifth picture that I took.
Yeah. And you can see in the background the bridge is broken in the middle just about, isn't it?
Yes, it broke right in the middle, kind of like a hinge.
Yeah. You said you grew up right around there, and so it must have been pretty sad to you to see that.
Yes, it was. It was real sad. When I got done taking my pictures, I had quite a lump in my throat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hall, for joining us here. There are a few other people we want you to hear from tonight. The 5 NewsCenter photographers who took most of the pictures that you've seen throughout this flood of '87. They, too, went through that flood.
Maine has showed a rare spirit and camaraderie in coming to the aid of their neighbors in the wake of this. I've never seen anything like it.
I think the Winslow area, for me, seeing their IGA, the Laverdiers flooded out.
But from an emotional standpoint, it was very difficult because you know that these people are suffering. And they may not show it on the outside, but you've got to suffer. I mean, if you lose everything, or practically everything.
Yeah, there was no bitterness. You know, people were concerned and they were worried. And they managed to smile through it all.
Well, I think the Maine people handled this very well. I think they're kind of used to, in a lot of places, flooding. But I think that Maine people are super, and I think
the flood is over. At least the water has gone down, but we will all be making repairs for a long time to come. And no one who went through these last few weeks will ever forget the flood of '87. I'm Don Kerrigan. Good night for NewsCenter.